Buenas and half a day. The Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture is now called to order. Today's June 10, 2022, and the time is about 9:06 a.m. In compliance with the Open Government Law, notices for this public hearing were published in the Guam Daily Post and the Government of Guam Public Notice Portal on Friday, June 3rd, and again on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. This hearing is being live streamed via the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel, and public notices were also disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. For today's hearing, individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and begin by stating your name for record-keeping purposes. Senators will be given an opportunity at the end of each panel to make comments or questions of those providing oral testimony. I'd like to thank my colleagues and acknowledge them today, beginning with Vice Speaker Tina Muñoz-Barnes, who is also the sponsor of the bill this morning, and Senator Terlaje. Thank you, colleagues. So we have one agenda item, and that is Bill number 262-36LS, sponsored by Vice Speaker Tina Rose Muñoz-Barnes and Therese M. Terlaje. It's myself. The prime sponsor, Vice Speaker, she will introduce the bill. Please.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speakers, and Manana Sijus to everyone and to the listening audience. This Bill 262-36 LS is a act to amend Section 181-28 of Chapter 18, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to amending the requirements for a school license and establishing an interim license for schools seeking accreditation. Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, this Bill 262-36 LS is a straightforward piece of legislation. It amends the licensure requirement for cosmetology schools to allow the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology to issue interim school licenses to schools in the process of getting accreditation. At present, Madam Chair, a cosmetology school can only be issued a license if they are accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, which is WAS, or the National Accrediting Commission of Cosmetology, Arts, and Sciences. However, in order for cosmetology schools to get accredited, they must have a school license approved by the board. And Madam Speaker, this Catch-22 prevents any new cosmetology school from opening and does not address what happens in the event a currently licensed school loses their accreditation. And as we continue our recoveries beyond this pandemic, we must do what we can to cultivate new industries and help our current ones thrive. There is a growing demand for this industry, and we need to ensure we have a qualified supply of barbers, cosmetologists, estheticians, and manicurists to meet that demand. And I literally, Madam Speaker, want to take the time to thank the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology for their input, and of course you, Speaker Terlaje, who's the chairperson of the Committee on Health, for your co-sponsorship and support for this effort. So I'm really hoping that we listen to the testimony out there, and thank you again for hearing this bill this morning. Si Diyos Masi and Sana Masi.
Buen provecho. Okay, so now we will, well, for the record, the committee requested feedback on this bill from the chairperson of the Guam Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, and she's here with us today. We also requested feedback from the Guam Health Professional Licensing Board, the Guam Cosmetology Schools, and we were able to contact Mariasi Beauty Academy, Stay Fresh Academy, GCC Cosmetology Academy, and we asked the board to also send our notice to each of their licensees so that they would be able to provide input if they wanted to. All All right, also for the record, we've received, well, they're going to be bringing in a couple written testimonies. I don't have those with me yet. And we did receive fiscal impact note from the BBMR, which says that this bill is administrative in nature and that there isn't a physical impact to the government of Guam. So now we will hear from those who are here today, and I want to welcome Chairperson Janice Kimball from the Guam Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. Ms. Kimball.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Speaker and Vice Speaker and good Senator. Yes, I am Janice Kimball. I am the Chairwoman of the Board of Cosmetology. I am in support of this bill, and so is our board members. We thank you so much for actually doing this, because we have had multiple inquiries about this issue, and honestly, it's about time. So we thank you. It's sound. We have looked through it, and it is it's giving the schools time to actually go through the process of getting accreditation and allowing the accreditation company as well to come into the schools and look through their whole system of doing things. So it's sound. So we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kimball. If I could just confirm, the board reviewed the bill and acted on it formally? Did they vote on their support of it or not?
I believe that we did.
I think I remember
Yeah,
that as well.
I believe that we did, because we did, we actually spoke on this more than once. And we reviewed it, and then we also sent it back to the Speaker's office, Vice Speaker's office, I'm sorry, and we asked for certain adjustments.
Okay.
So there was dialogue in between.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so we also have with us Mr. Kiran To to testify. Mr. To.
Hafaday, good morning, Madam Speaker, Madam Vice Speaker, and Senator Taitagui. Thank you for having me. My name is Kiran To, and I'm a recent graduate of Father Duenas Memorial School, and this is my personal testimony, and I'm from the Public Policy Institute. As a student, going to an accredited school or college means a lot and influences many of my academic decisions. When a school first opens, it is very difficult for the institution to attract students, especially without a proper license. This bill will help schools in their early phases by providing them with an interim license that will hopefully attract new students and their families. As more schools open, providing an interim license will greatly increase access to quality education on island. Additionally, this interim license will also save school and government resources. Instead of using an excess amount of resources to gain accreditation immediately, schools can use the interim period to assess school operations and practices so that once they apply for accreditation, the process can take place as swiftly as possible. The establishment of an interim license will also save students resources and will allow them to progress through their education and career with no extra costs. Learning from mistakes is very important, and mistakes made in the interim period will facilitate progress not only throughout the school, but also throughout the island, while helping the school gain accreditation. Today, several cosmetology students at unaccredited schools are uncertain about whether or not they will be able to find work without a license. These students, who have spent countless hours in the classroom and large amounts of money, are trapped with seemingly no way to utilize their hard-earned skills. The establishing of an interim license for schools will allow students who attend these institutions to continue their education without the fear that their resources have been wasted. This situation emphasizes the need for this bill. As our island recovers from the negative impacts of COVID-19, and as tourism and the economy show promising post-pandemic results, the need for cosmetologists is apparent. However, this part of the economy's growth is restricted due to lack of school accreditation. There is demand for cosmetologists, but schools are unable to provide the supply. By making school and training more accessible, we can supply our economy with well-trained cosmetologists. By providing schools with interim licenses, schools can continue to educate students and equip them with the necessary skills to practice work that will stimulate economic growth. The people of this island deserve a quality education, and this starts with improving access to education through the opening, licensing, and accreditation of schools. Bill 262-36 does exactly this and will tremendously benefit our island's future for many years to come. Sijuus Maasi.
Sijuos Masi, Mr. To, and I want to thank you for also providing that in writing to us. So that's been disseminated to the senators. So we also have one written testimony by the Guam Community College, the lead cosmetology instructor, Janice Trina Uggan. All right. I will allow the sponsor of the bill to begin questions or comments.
Sijuos Maasi, Madam Speaker. Sylvia, Danny Girdle.
So another person has just entered to testify, so we'll allow him to testify before questions or comments. Hi, please have a seat, and you are welcome to testify. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Gerwell, and I represent Stay Fresh Academy.
All right, would you like to testify?
Yes.
Please proceed.
So I reviewed the bill, and I think it's a wonderful move forward, and it's an honor to be a part of making history on Guam. There is one portion, though, that I would like to speak directly to. In regards to cosmetology instructor, I guess candidates or students. Let me see if I can find it real quick. So in the law, it states that to become a candidate to apply as an instructor, cosmetology instructor, you would need 2 voc-ed courses, which are offered at GCC, which I took when I was teaching there. So briefly, I've been a licensed instructor for 15 years. I taught both at Mary AC and GCC. And then additionally, there's a requirement of, is it 800 hours or 600? One moment. 600 hours of classroom training and without the direct supervision. So I'm on page 3 of the bill. Now, one of the things that that I find here is that there's a repeat of learning that takes place, because within the curriculum for My Lady specifically, so GCC and we also use My Lady Standard. We're a hybrid school, so we use MindTap, which is most of our scholastic takes place online, and then we do have some theory activities and then hands-on learning, which is the practical. For the instructors, they're required to take 2 voc-ed classes at GCC, and then additionally to complete 600 hours. The rationale is that in the voc-ed classes, you'll learn how to do lesson planning, course management, class management, all of the things that are actually covered in the My Lady Standard instructor course. So in the instructor course, you go through the exact same thing, but it's specifically to cosmetology. The Voc Ed course is just a general vocational education, which it is very valuable. However, this is a redundancy to require that an instructor student takes 2 Voc Ed classes and then also is admitted into the My Lady Standard course. They're covering the same thing. And so in the research that I did and looking at the law in general for schools and all of this throughout the 50 states, I didn't find anywhere else where they required an instructor to take an additional, and I could be wrong, but from what I was able to research, there was no requirement of additional courses to be taken. So they would be admitted to a school that has an instructor program. They would go through the program and cover all of the subject matter that is required to be able to then, just like with cosmetology, to take the test, practical and written, and then be issued a license. So this would be under number 2, page 3. That's what I'm looking at.
Which letter?
The letter would be, so there's F, which goes over persons receiving instructor training in cosmetology, etc. Will be under direct supervision of a licensed instructor, and then during their 600 hours of training without direct supervision of a licensed instructor in the classroom or clinic. And then on page 4, so skipping over to page 4, continuing on, under I, so H is crossed out, and you have I at line 3. Students seeking an instructor certification of completion from an accredited school of cosmetology, nail technology, aesthetics, electrology, or barbering must complete Voc Ed 1 and 2. And then it says, classes typical of the program often include some variation of instructor concepts, instructor practicum, laboratory and clinical supervision, classroom management, testing and evaluation, teaching methods, and lesson planning. Courses from the accredited college or university designed to prepare them for a career in cosmetology instruction. Students must also acquire the skills in lesson planning, grading, student counseling, communication, record keeping, and student supervision and safety procedures. So this is specifically the paragraph that I'm referring to. And I did bring, I can certainly leave this. This is a printout of the master educator portion, and it has all of what's covered in it, which includes everything that is being required and is actually covered in the Voc Ed 1 and 2. So this is a redundancy in the law. So if we could address that, as far as they're basically going to learn how to do lesson planning twice, and I mean, you can never learn too many times, right? But it causes a hardship in a sense, because if and when those classes are available, any person who would want to go into an instructor course, they would have to wait for those classes, and then they're just going to repeat the same subject matter when they enroll in the instructor program at the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gerwell, yeah, so I think I understand your concerns, and those provisions are listed in this bill. However, no changes are being made in this bill to those provisions or being proposed by this bill, and I'm going to say that that's kind of out of the scope of this particular bill, and I would recommend that be raised with the cosmetology board, and that if they do not resolve it, then definitely bring it to our attention, and we will try to resolve that
Okay,
if
thank you.
necessary. And it does seem,
Everything else, I love it.
so the parts in the bill that we are changing in the law, which allow for temporary licensing or interim licensing of schools that do not have accreditation, you support that?
Yes. Just briefly, it takes ANACUS requires that a school be open 18 months before they can even become a candidate. So you have to be open a year and a half. Then the process from there is that the representative from the school would need to go to the states and attend an ISI, which is a 2-day conference to learn how to do all the paperwork and make sure that the school will qualify for accreditation. Additionally, we have to fly 1 to 2 people out here to inspect the school. It's somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 to become accredited. So it's not a simple thing. But we are preparing and moving towards accreditation. So that's something we will as Stay Fresh Academy. But as far as the time frame, I think it's reasonable because it says within 2 years, so that's basically 24 months. And at 18 months, we're going to submit our application anyway. So that gives us an additional 6 months. And then it can take between 3 to 5 years. Generally, most schools would be able to become accredited within 3 years, notwithstanding any lockdowns or anything else that happens.
All right, so Stay Fresh Academy is a school on Guam, cosmetology school on Guam?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you licensed?
We are licensed by the Board of Cosmetology with an interim license, which was, I'm very grateful that even before this hearing, the board extended that to us to be able to open and to be able to start operations. And so we're within that. We were given a letter. I think we have to readdress the board after 1 year. And so I'm not sure if this will affect that, or I can talk to the chairwoman on that part. But everything seems to be in order, and I think it's reasonable to, even with a school losing its accreditation and all of that, I think it's fair to everyone. And so I appreciate the effort of everyone that worked on this.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gura.
Thank you.
Mr. Cameron, would you like to present testimony today?
Buenas and saludas, señoras. Maguftu na matuzupago na ogan. No estina bio destituto honya. Za malagutu na pabio na idang kuluna agradecimiento para si señora senadoran Tina Munia Barnes. Guiza gehulo, guiza gumalui esti na klasin tsotso sa atman manazuda. Para todo este sheitauto ni man na tsotso guinin na klasin tsotso. Hi, I'm Joseph Artero Cameron. I'm here to represent Mary A.C. Beauty Academy. I continue to be the lead educator for the academy. This is my 43rd year in the field of teaching. I am the first Chamorro licensed cosmetology educator. Historically, I am the first. So I guess you could coin the phrase, I'm the grandfather of Guam's cosmetology. And that's not bragging, it's the truth. My training came from North Carolina and Chicago with Pivot Point International. We are the largest chain school in the world. We represent over 300 schools worldwide and mounting. I want to thank Senator Tina Rose Mooney Barnes and also Speaker. Thank you very much. And Senator Tello I was asked by the good senator to review this bill in totality. I support the bill 100%. I believe that there are still going to be gaps in the future as we move forward to grow the industry. Quite obviously, what is not mentioned in this bill, and it doesn't have to be mentioned, but growing the field of barbering is a growing concern for Guam. When I say barbering, I'm talking about opening up a barber school. We don't have barber instructors on Guam. We do have cosmetologist instructors who also are authorized to teach haircutting, and nonetheless, we don't teach shaving. We don't teach all the finite things that barbers do. So we don't call ourselves anywhere here in Guam a barber school. We don't qualify as a barber school yet. So not until such time that we create legislation that dictates the A, B, and C of what barber schools are supposed to look like, and what is the mandate for licensure for barber educators so that they can actually say, I am a barber school. Nothing prohibits any cosmetology school to also hire a barber license educator so that they can grow the program under that same umbrella, but provided they're separate and segregated only because when you're working in the field of cosmetology, especially in chemicals, there's a lot of stuff going on in the air. And if you're on the side, too close for comfort, and shaving somebody's face, all those particles could pretty much get right into somebody's open skin and cause an infection, or even worse, some dermatological adverse effect to skin, especially for those individuals who are already affected with skin disorders. So I think the bill in its totality is fine. I don't want to water down the bill by saying we need to include right this minute statutory language that we could introduce to reference specifics of what a barber school can and can't do. We need to legislate it so that it is incorporated into the overall, not just cosmetological, because remember, barbering is not necessarily cosmetological, because cosmetology is not barbering. So I think for the sake of the industry, right now for sure, I would say 99.9% of all women and men who graduate from cosmetology, when they get out there into the industry, men are wanting their barber cuts, and they're already providing that. I would like very much to see the barber industry grow. And I would be more than happy to sit at the table with the board. And by the way, I want to thank the great work that's been done by our great chair, who's also nationally known in the field. She holds a very high post on the National Institute of Cosmetology groups. And wow, I believe you and Marcy kind of held two highest positions nationwide. So Guam, in essence, sits the most in our entire nation's cosmetology boards. So Guam has two major voices who are executive and vice executive directors. So kudos to you. Thank you very much. One of the things I wanted to also mention, and I don't know if this is something that can be said now or later, but right now the current law only allows for one-on-one shadow. What that basically means is when an individual graduates from any school nationwide and they're all wanting to take the national board exams, there's a time that takes anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 months before that national board can be administered. In the interim, somebody who had spent $20,000+, and I say that very seriously, by the time they finish school, they have already mounted over 30 grand on expenditures, over 30,000 over a period of 11 months. And to have to wait 6 months, even 4 months, is unbearable because they need to make money. Right now, we're authorizing by law individuals to shadow under a licensed professional until such time that they can get licensed. I think we need to propose, maybe sooner than later, legislation that speaks of the work permit. And I really caution all of us here not to call it an apprentice license, because there's no such a thing as a license other than cosmetology, barbering, aesthetics, nail technology. There is no such thing as an apprentice license. What that is it's a work permit. I would like very much if Senator Tina Rosemary Barnes will make reference somewhere on definitions that it's a work permit for individuals who wish to work under a licensed professional as an apprentice. Because it's become a misnomer for a lot of people that says, oh, I got my apprentice license. I says, the last time I read the law, there was no such thing as an apprentice license. While we're on that topic, I would like to see more than one person that can work under a licensed professional. Right now, it's a one-on-one. It's unbearable because if you have a three-chair salon, or maybe just a 6-chair barber shop, and that person, and it's all about business, and we want people to succeed, and we want folks to be able to walk into an establishment and get their services provided and not have to say, well, you know, I have 6 chairs and I can only have one person to work under me while they're waiting to be licensed. I think something needs to be said about that. I think we need to increase at least 2 to 1, not 1-on-1. It should be 2 to 1, so that we can build capacity for the businesses, and most especially to allow individuals to make a selection, to have an informed choice as to which establishment they want to work for. Right now, the hands of the board is tied. They can only accept 1 application per shop, per licensed person to have a work permit. I think, if you don't mind, Senator Tina Rosemary Barnes, Vice Speaker, if you don't mind, please, can we just nip that now so that we can take care of all our folks who really need to work? They spend thousands of dollars in nail technology, aesthetics, barbering. Just for the record, barbers have 2 types of licenses. It's Barber 1 and Barber 2. The Barber 1 is strictly barbering. Barber 2 is a combination of cosmetology and barbering. A lot of money. So I think we need to just revisit potentially in a separate bill so we don't water this one down. We want this to pass immediately. But I'm only asking to inject one item. Allow 2 to 1 work permit per licensed person. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. We're going to begin by allowing the Vice Speaker to begin with comments or questions for the panel.
Situs Masi, Madam Chair and Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. And I want to thank all the panel members for being here and literally giving your time. As a former member, maybe 20-some years ago, to the Board of Cosmetology, I knew that there were a lot of changes that we needed to working with the National Institute of Cosmetology. And as we state, I again restate what the speaker has spoke about the provisions on this bill 262-36 moving forward, that the underlying provisions that are in the proposed legislations right now are the ones that would be included, and that the other sections of this bill are already stated in the law but are renumbered, so we included it so that we can make sure that when it gets codified that everything falls in order. So of course, a discussion that we can work closely with the Board of Cosmetology to update, especially with your concerns, Mr. Daniel, because it's very, very important. And also, Mr. Cameron, I know that because it was brought up today, and if the chair feels that we can work amendments to that, I don't see a problem. But I think that it's important as we fix the concerns of making sure that those that are even temporarily given that license, that in order for them to get that license, we need to fix our law, because it specifically states, like you said earlier, like the 18 months, and you can't get, until you have served 18 months, you have to get the license. And that's why I said earlier we're in this catch-22. I only want to also note that this concern of the apprentices and the one-to-one has been a major concern, and I don't know if that is materially different from what's being said right now. So, like I said, I have no objections if that comes on or not, or we can continue to work with the Board of Cosmetology and add new provisions, Madam Chair, or include it in the amendments here, because it's still a part of the cosmetology sense. And Madam Chair, I think Mr. Cameron has an update just based on that, on this comment. So, I'll recognize you, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you. It's part of my disabling condition. It's called attention deficit disorder. Wow. I just lost my thought. It was very important.
The one-to-one, sir.
Oh, testing. I want to go back to the word testing. It was brought to my attention by Madam Chair and Marcy Tiong that Guam has an opportunity to actually have a testing center provide the same day written tests, same day. And that they only have to wait to take their practical exam and not have to do the practical exam and the written test at one day. They can immediately, within moments of pressing enter, they'll know if they passed or failed their written. And this doesn't need to be said today, but schools do a grand, bang, good job of teaching individuals to get on the clinic floor and do hair. I'm going to make a statement that I didn't think I was going to ever make in the duration of my 43 years in cosmetology, but I would like very much to consider removing practical exams altogether and just do written. Because the schools, you have to pass the practical in the schools to be able to graduate. I believe the practical exam is superfluous, it's unnecessary. I really believe that. Because when you go into the practical and they say wrap 6 rods, well, the students have been wrapping 40 to 100 rods. They know what they're doing. They do hair color daily. They do bleach daily. They do depilatories daily. They do nails daily. They do that already. So to jump on the bandwagon, I would highly recommend at some point in time that some states, not a bunch, but some states don't require the practical because they already see it in their matriculation of their schooling. They've had more than enough training. So if we were to let go of the practical and just stick to the national written test, they could be licensed within 1 day and not wait 6 months.
Madam Chair, thank you again, Mr. Cameron, and Madam Speaker. I just want to say that we truly are open to further discussions on how to update the Barbering and Cosmetology Act. So again, Madam Chair, I leave it up to your discretion, and I want to literally thank the panel members because yes, these points that were brought up today are very important, and I think that we can add to making sure that this industry is given the tools necessary so that they can almost work immediately after graduation. So thank you, Madam Speaker. Sainamasi.
Thank you, and I also appreciate the suggestions and recommendations for further legislation that are being made today, but I would like that to be in separate legislation. That's my initial reaction, and so that the board can make its determination as well. I'd like them to notify all of their licensees and also get their input if possible. But those seem like, you know, off the top, some good suggestions, so I'm sure that they will take a look at them. All right, but back to the bill, if I may, I do have some questions. So first of all, to the board chairperson, Ms. Kimball, were all the licensees notified of this hearing and this legislation?
I believe so.
Thank you. And, all right, so this bill allows that right now the law requires that a school be accredited and before it can get a license. So this bill is going to allow for them to get an interim license while they are applying for accreditation. They must show proof of that application. And but they get renewed every year while waiting for an application up to 5 years. In parts of the bill, it actually says 6 years, and I want to clarify that. So do you believe that that is a reasonable amount of time to wait for accreditation of a school? Because in the interim, graduates of that interim licensed school are going to be licensed. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you for that question. As Mr. Daniel had mentioned about the process of accreditation with the school that he is representing today, there is an 18-month waiting period where they have to submit all their application and all the requirements that the accreditation company desires. And so the 2-year portion of that application allows them that freedom. The requirement for the board for the school with an interim license to come in within the year gives the board the opportunity to look through and make sure that they are doing what they need to do, because as you mentioned, those that are graduating are going to be wanting to take the exam. And we will look at their applications also basing it off of their school. So we're prepared to take those students or those graduates, because I'm not sure if you're aware, but when a student comes in for, say, manicuring, they're in there for 4 months. So within that whole year, you can have X amount of graduates within that year that school is in the process of their accreditation. Now, our hope is that they do everything that the accreditation company tells them to do and they pass with flying colors. Now, if they don't, then what is the board to do with all those students that have graduated in a school that didn't pass their accreditation application? So it is because of that desire to protect even the graduates is the reason why we have the 1 year that they would, or every year basically, I think that's what it is, for them to renew their interim license.
So you're saying that the board is going to take it upon themselves to do some type of review of these schools annually, to review their graduates that you are going to license. If they pass the test, you're going to license the graduates of interim schools.
Yes.
All right, and then when you license those graduates, you have adequate means of determining that despite no accreditation at the school, that these graduates they meet all the standards?
So we have contacted NACIS, and we've asked them if these schools are applying and they have not been accredited, will they look at these students that are going to these schools as graduating from an accredited school? And actually, they will
Okay.
allow them. So.
Okay. Okay, that's good. I just want to make sure that the board feels that is safe and good for our consumers.
Yes.
And will you have access to the accrediting bodies' reports or status reports or reviews?
That is part of the requirement when the schools apply. So they will have to bring that in, and each year that they come in to make their renewal, they would have to put in those reports.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. And so do you think that we should allow up to 6 years? Up to 5 years or 6 years? Or should we cut it at 3, as someone said normal is 3 years?
Well, we have considered different options, but because it takes up to 2 years or 18 months, right, for the first initial phase, there is another phase. So it just allows the school more freedom to complete what the accreditation company is looking for.
Okay, I hope the board then is going to review carefully and hold firm if they are not meeting on a yearly basis what they should be expected to do. For example, or in other words, no progress for 5 years. That's a lot of students that will be
Yes.
graduating without, an accreditation.
Yes, and so again, we're looking at their renewal every year. And so if within that year, because the accreditation company also will show, or it will show us where they're falling behind,
Okay.
that school itself. So we're also relying on the accreditation company to show us those reports.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to write that into the bill, that a requirement of this interim is that you have access to those reports as well.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll get to you, Mr. Cameron, just one more. I want to finish with the board chair. If we, okay, so just to be clear, graduates of the interim licensed schools will be treated the same as graduates of a licensed accredited school, correct?
Yes.
If they pass a test and everything. All right, and then do you, and you said the board is going to take it upon itself to oversee these schools in the interim while they are being accredited or going through the accreditation process, and the board is going to ensure that the customers, that our consumers from unaccredited schools are also that practicing standard requirements, that our consumers will be safe.
Yes.
All right. Can I ask Mr. Cameron from Mary Aussie? So is Mary Aussie a licensed and accredited school?
Mary AC Beauty Academy is in the process of re-applicant status. It lost its accreditation a little over a year ago. And that portion of the accreditation had nothing really to do with the teaching and the methodology. It was more on the financial side of audits to make sure that the school can show, for accreditation, sustainability of finance.
All right.
So it wasn't so much, do you have teachers, do you have good school?
Okay.
I wanted to comment on that because, Madam Speaker, it's very important that we understand here in Guam that nationwide, not all schools are accredited, but they're always looking forward to getting accreditation for the purpose of getting Pell Grants.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. If you're not an accredited school, in the United States or in Guam, it doesn't mean that you don't teach or you don't have an excellent school. All it means is you cannot get Pell Grants.
Okay, that's helpful.
Number
thank you.
one. Number two, if you are going from a non-accredited school to an accredited school to finish, for example, our military dependent, the wives who go to our beauty schools here, and they only matriculated 600 hours, they need another 1,000 hours. If they're moving to an accredited school, none of their hours will be accepted. They will start all over. Because if you're in an accredited school, they would only accept credits from another accredited school, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So we always tell, like for example, we tell our students who are coming into Maria's Beauty Academy that we want to make sure that you understand that when you start school here, because we're still reapplying, and that can take up to like 12 months or more to actually get the reaccreditation, that if you're not going to finish your classes here, the likelihood that when you decide to go to a beauty college, wherever your husband is stationed next, and it's an accredited school, understand that the accredited school may or may not, likely will not accept your hours.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of why I asked the chairperson about if the accredited schools are not accepting students from, or the hours from non-accredited schools, but the board is going to be accepting those apparently.
Which is good.
Okay, but all right, one more question then is, do we have, Ms. Kimball, do we have licensed accredited schools on Guam?
Yes, we do.
Okay, how many?
GCC is currently accredited.
Okay, all right, then that brings me to GCC.
Now, GCC is not accredited by NACAS. GCC is accredited by the actual GCC requirements of their accreditation body as a college.
WASC.
Okay, so WASC is one of the options. It's either WASC or the NACO, you call it? NACO? NACCO.
For
NACAS.
private schools, WASP is not an option. It has to be a private accreditation. There's only two
It
accrediting.
says Western Association of Schools and Colleges or the National Accrediting Commission of Career Arts and Sciences. That's what
Yes.
the law will say if this bill's passed.
For
Okay.
GCC purposes, we need to make sure we cover them.
Okay, I will confirm that with them, but, so Ms. Uggan from GCC posed this question. On lines 15 through 19 of the bill, I think this is on page 2. It's already written for an interim school license. A school must apply for accreditation within 2 years and achieve accreditation within 5. If a school fails, interim school license is rescinded and must apply as a new applicant. What is to stop the school from continuing this cycle every 5 years? Change the name, change the owner based on the verbiage of this bill. Nothing prevents this 5-year perpetual cycle of interim school license from ceasing. I also had that question. It does seem like there might be some contradiction in the bill that we need to clear up, so I'd like your help. So if you look at line 15, this first sentence on line 15, you can hold an interim license for a total of 6 years, and if you fail to achieve accreditation within 5 years, the school must apply as a new applicant. That's very different than up above and down below where it says, if the school does not achieve accreditation within 6 years, the license shall be rescinded and the school cannot reapply for an interim school license. Which one does the board recommend? Yeah, this I think language might have come from the board, but which one do you recommend?
I'm sorry, I have to ask you to repeat that.
Oh, can we
I'm
give
so sorry.
the chair a copy of the bill, please?
Give them an extra year.
All right. All right, so first of all, yeah, so on line 15 on page 2, it talks about if you don't achieve your accreditation within that 5-year period, you must apply as a new applicant. And so GCC is questioning why allow them to apply again as a new applicant if they've failed. And the next line of the bill, it says, if they failed within 6 years, the license shall be rescinded and school cannot reapply. I like that language better. If you haven't succeeded, but I'm wondering if we go by school names or we go by applicants, are those individual applicants, and how are we going to hold them accountable that way? While Ms. Kimball's reviewing that, Mr. Cameron?
Yes. As all things are procedural, you can have your max of 5 years, but if a body is trying to remove or obliterate, for that matter, off the face of the earth, a company, it can take up to a year of litigation. It could take years of appeal. So we need to allow for that process to make its way for the appeal so that you don't all of a sudden just decapitate somebody without due process. So the 5 years is amendable. It's something that's very realistic. And the reason why I say this is because when we were applying for accreditation, we became an applicant status. That's what we are again. Anytime you fall out of the accreditation process, you just redo things. That is up to 18 months to 2 years. Then they review it.
Yeah.
And they may want to come back another 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
And if they're not happy, they may even further it. And so for the board to say, you're not accredited within X amount of years, it's driven by the body that accredits. And we cannot apply a specific number from state to state, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, as to why NACAS has not moved forward for complete acceptance of accreditation. But nonetheless, there's effort, there's due process. The board will monitor, and they'll get documents from NACAS or from WASP, what's going on, so that we don't move into a direction of obliteration for no good.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Kimball, is there any reason why we would allow them to apply as a new applicant if they have not reached their accreditation versus not allowing them to reapply?
So I have to say that when we came up with the numbers of the years and reapplication and so forth, we were looking at the NACAS recommendations, application, and the process of how they accredit a school. So because of that's what we followed in regards to the years. So just like Mr. Cameron had said, they allot for, of course, if there are adjustments that need to be made because of errors or they weren't able to produce a certain thing in their application. So they're given that allotted time.
That's for the time, but what
Yes.
about for allowing them to if they failed within 5 years, allowing them to reapply as a new applicant or cannot reapply for an interim school? Which one do we want?
Chair, I'm sorry I'm butting in, but you've got a very valid, salient point. Personally, if they can't figure it out in 6 years, they don't need to own a school.
Ms. Kimball? If
This was indicated by the, because you're asking to decide whether there needs to be a reapplication for the interim license if they failed that accreditation. Like I first mentioned, because of the accreditation company, there is that portion that was given to them if they did not meet all of the requirements. So this allowed the schools that were applying the ability to keep their interim license without stopping. Because what happens is, if we stop them, if we stop the schools, if we do not give them that continuation of business, then actually their application with that accreditation company is then terminated. So they have to start all the way from the beginning. So this really was taking into account that there may be things that they would still need to adjust.
Sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see the leeway that if they're this close at the
Yes.
5-year, you might want to allow a little additional time. But what if they failed, let's say at the end of 6 years? Are you going to allow them to apply again as a new name?
They would have to reapply like what is stated. If they,
Oh, I see. A new name would
Yeah.
be an entirely new application, start all over
yes,
versus.
they would have to reapply.
Okay, when you license them, are they licensed as a business name or are they licensed individuals? Are there any individuals held accountable?
Business name.
Business, as a
Okay,
business.
all right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to allow, we have another hearing coming up, so we'll discuss if any further clarifications needed, but otherwise, Senator Taitigui, any questions or comments for this panel?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to my colleagues as well as to those who are here testifying today. Thank you for taking the time out to discuss this, to make sure that you provide us your expertise and knowledge so to ensure this bill that we put forward is going to benefit everybody, in a good way, but most especially to protect our not only our students, but, our community as well. So I appreciate. And is it okay if I call you, Madam Chair, Jen? It's Jen, right?
Jenneth,
How do you spell that?
Jenneth, pronounced
Jenneth.
like Kenneth, yes.
Janice, okay. Okay, it was very nice meeting you. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
also serving on the board, because I know it could be very taxing. I've heard many stories from Mr. Cameron, as he and I have been friends for quite a long time, and sharing with me some of the concerns on cosmetology. That's why I was wondering if, Madam Chair, did we get a testimony from Public Health or the HPLO?
No, we did not.
Okay, will it be requested? The only reason why I bring this up, Madam Chair, is because they're the ones that do the inspections.
No,
You
that
know.
is the board here.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean on the, okay, that's fine. We will solicit again, but they
Okay.
did not reply.
Yeah, it's not only board, but Public Health does too, under the HPLO. They also do these, like permits, et cetera, like that. So I think I'd like to hear their input, as well as other jurisdictions. Is this something, Janet, that this bill was trying to mirror in other areas, like California, Hawaii? I mean, is this the same scenario in those jurisdictions?
Yes, I believe there are other states that also have these types of issues, like our island. So
Do they have the same type of, like, 6 years? We were just having this whole conversation on the 5-year and 6 years.
yes,
What is Hawaii's time frame in Hawaii? Because I know that, I'm sorry, was it Andrew, your first name? Andrew?
Daniel.
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 Hi, Daniel. You mentioned something it being taking like almost 3 years, as you were explaining the process of 1.5 years to open, 2 days training, 15 to 20,000 to get accredited and stuff. So it's approximately 3 years to try and get accredited.
Correct.
So my question is, in Hawaii, what is the standard there on allowing, is it 5 years or 6 years to allow these individuals to be accredited? If not, then I'll take you next, Joseph, Jenneth.
Well, with Hawaii, they actually have their own testing, and they have their own. They don't do it the same way as we do. So
Understood.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar
Okay.
with their state. They're actually not.
So it sounds to me like they have some other mechanisms in place to allow the process to be much smoother and faster than what we're anticipating here, because we don't have all those options that other states have. Go ahead, Joseph, you want to chime in on this one?
I think because this is one of those languages that has been embedded in the minds of individuals, and we're a land of laws. Thank you, United States of America. Not every state and not every beauty school, not every barber school requires accreditation. And I will reiterate this. If you're going to go for accreditation, it's because you're pushing for other financial resources. And there has to be that seal of excellence that at least mimics that you have a center of excellence and that the federal government can give you Pell Grants, etc. I need to make that clear, that it is not a critical mass for any beauty school or beauty college or barber school that they must be accredited. That is a private company accreditation, and there's two actually, and Madam Chair stated that, like Hawaii, they don't require national board exams. They don't do it. They have their own
I see.
internalizing.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. So, Madam Chair, Janice, does the board currently issue interim school licenses? And if so, under what legal authority is this action taken?
We have given them an interim license under, I would have to look, basically what we've named it. The AG's office, yeah, recommended it through our, yeah, so they do have a certificate right now.
So, under that legal premise, you're saying that the Attorney General gave you a opinion that you can actually do these interim, provide these interim licensures without? Okay.
I guess-
Gives you the authority. In other words, the board just gives you the authority.
I guess when we looked for legal advice, and we know this for the lawmakers, if it's not written in the law that you cannot, it doesn't necessarily mean, you
Silent.
can. The law has to be, there's a lot of gaps.
Okay,
And
I
I think you're hitting the nerve right there, and I think maybe what you need to do is create an amendment on this bill to make specific reference to that question you're asking. That
So
would
there
fix
is,
it.
so basically there is no law that allows you to issue interim school license, or you're just doing it as a board by voting, okay.
Okay.
Maybe we should put something into legislation
Senator,
to make it clear.
I
if I
think,
may.
Senator, if you don't mind my injecting, any bill that passes the litmus test here and it's engrossed and it's sent over to the governor signs it and attaches it to a public law number, and it states on the bill that rules and regulations have to be within 90 days, etc. To this very day, we don't have an approved rules and regulations for cosmetology on Guam. That's the closest I can give you.
Okay, that
Because
actually
if
says a lot.
she's
Thank
going
you,
to
Joseph,
implement the
for,
law, she needs rules and regulations to implement it with.
right. Okay, well, that says a lot, a whole lot. And my last question would be, Madam Chair, when do you plan on putting those rules and regulations together?
As soon as possible.
Have you started?
Yes, we have. We have been working on it, and we were actually close to the end of it, but we've had some hiccups along the way. But yes, we
So,
are.
I'm sure everybody has a goal. What is your end goal? What date?
Before the end of the year, I'm hoping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you, everyone. Daniel, for being here. And, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Kien? K-I-E-N, right, Kien?
Kieran.
Kieran. You mentioned earlier something about Public Policy Institute. You said that at the very beginning. You're part of a Public Policy Institute?
Yes, so I'm here over the summer in the legislature as part of this Public Policy Institute program.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here, sir.
Oh, yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Senator Tadigui. Senator Brown, for any comments or questions, please.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it limited. I understand we're over the time, but in listening to the testimony, I guess the one thing I would look at is just the time frame for the second 6 years. Because if these are the schools that are actually doing the training and teaching the students, I mean, we're going to want to make sure they meet certain standards, obviously, with regards to the training and what they're doing. So I'm sure that probably, if it isn't amended in committee, probably will come up. Because, I mean, then you're talking almost 12 years. Or if they continue another 6 years after, you're talking 18 years. And I understand your point, Mr. Cameron, that if they want to reach this accreditations because they might want to apply for other grants and things that can benefit them and their students, but it's not required. So I'm sure we'll probably deliberate on that. But that's just the only thing. It's just that impression that, for most people, 6 years seems like a long time. And then if for whatever reason they don't do it, they get another 6 years. I mean, by then, Esther, we're retired, right? Right. So I'm just bringing that up with regards to the language as it is. That gives me a little bit of reservation. I mean, if they're really aggressive to do it, what would be a reasonable time frame to accomplish this? Is it 6 years, or can they do it in 2 years? What is the normal, considering we only, aside from GCC, we don't have any other, and how many beauty schools do we have on Guam?
Pardon?
How many schools do we have?
We have 3. We have GCC, and then
Okay, and then we have 2 others, but none, and then the other. Is it Mercy? I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce
Mary
it.
AC.
Mary AC. That has since lost. It wasn't able to renew its
Yes,
accreditation.
we're already into our 8th or 9th month of applicant
Okay.
status, and we already went to the States.
I
We
see.
met with all the members,
Right.
and we've done all we need to do, and we're going back and forth, so,
So
we're
what would you
requiring them
say?
to come to Guam.
What would you say for those that were accredited? How long did it take them to accomplish that? To get the original accreditation? Did it take 6 years?
No, not at all. 6 years is excessive.
Okay.
But I do know for a fact that if language was to be put statutorily in this bill, that we need to give some teeth to the board to communicate directly with the accrediting company to find out
The status of where they're at?
we need to require it, and not just maybe we'll ask it, but we need to require that the board is authorized statutorily that they will be in direct communication with the accrediting company. They need to, because the only person right now that's doing it is the applicant,
Yeah.
but not the board. The board can only ask certain things of the applicant, but I think if we statutorily dictate. Here's another thing, for GCC to make a statement that what if? Well, guess what? Even public schools lost their accreditation. Are you aware of that? Did we close down the schools and send the kids home? No, we didn't. So I have my rathers about such an ignorant statement from GCC. Very ignoramus. Number 2, doubly ignorant. If I decide to sell my company to somebody else to take over, NACAS is not going to automatically let me have that accreditation. I'm going to have to start all over because it's a new ball game. It's a new owner. Okay? So, yes.
Well, again, I don't want to belabor because I know the time is short, but I think if other language could be looked at to have a sense of, that it's facilitating that things are moving, I think I'd be a little more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And maybe the additional time is less than 6 years, and maybe I'd be supportive of it because it just...
But, GCC has no authority to dictate what private industry does outside of their school, to say, oh, well, this, oh, well, that. Well, try opening up a private company of your own at your own dollar and tell me that.
Well, like I said, I think the opportunity is there to further strengthen the bill, and maybe it would be more palatable if we felt a sense of urgency or that things are moving rather than, it can be an additional 6 years, additional 6 years, additional 6 years. Just because, again, these are individuals that are training the up and coming, and we certainly want to make sure that they're qualified and certified to do that. With that, thank you. Thank you to all of you for coming and providing testimony. Certainly, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to ask these questions.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown, and thank you for attending the hearing today. Again, thank you to the panel. Senator and Vice Speaker, you may close on the bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I truly appreciate the discussion from the panel today. And as I noted earlier, based on the Oversight Chair's recommendation, I think it's important that we continue these discussions for proposed legislation in the future as it relates to the concerns that were brought up today. And I just want to say thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity for this bill to move forward. And I hope that we can work on this bill immediately, as it does correct the catch-22 that we're in right now and the need for this bill moving forward based on the opinions that were opined by the government through the Board of Cosmetology. So thank you for working with our office very closely on this, and like I said, we can continue to move forward with all the other recommendations that were brought forth today. So and I know we have another hearing, so God bless. Thank you.
Vice Speaker, and again, thank you to the panel. So there being no additional individuals to present testimony, the committee will consider Bill number 262-36LS duly heard. Public hearing is adjourned, and it is now 10:22 a.m.